Welcome back to Nicholas Comic Corner Classic Non-Classics. This is episode number 2684 and Doubleshot number 2578. Yeah. So this first trade I got here, discuss. I wanted to wait for this one until after I got done. Two trades from the respective series before I got a chance to do this one. And this is Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Weapons of Vengeance. This collects the Ghost Rider / Wolverine Weapons of Vengeance Alpha and Omega, along with Ghost Rider. I believe this is volume number 9, I believe it is. Issue 17, and Wolverine volume 6. 6? No, 7. Issue 36. ID ready for the Wolverine? Not exactly. Now, mostly put the first portion of the story. Like, the ending of the Ghost Rider book led into this, but that doesn't come to halfway to the story. Where it's like, we detail of how Ghost Rider and Wolverine first met. We kind of detail that history throughout the first half of the story. And then we finally deal with the whole Weapons of Vengeance stuff, where Dan Ketch is captured by the Weapon Plus program, and where it's part of a section called Project Hellfire, where he becomes a Weapon of Vengeance. And like, there's also a thing where Johnny Blaze gets captured, and then Wolverine is sent for possession by this guy called Father Pike, who only appears in this very story arc. It's almost like before I continue, this has been Purse read in this book. Now, was the build up for this in the two books? Was a little bit of build up for this in the pages of Ghost Rider Wolverine. That's how we like this. Also, in case you're curious, though, is the two supporting characters from both their books in this crossover. Jeff, yep. Talia, yep. Do you think it's crossover? Not really. Half the crossover just Wolverine, Johnny Blaze fighting each other and nearly murdering each other. In the end, the project gets shut down once again. This like they try to start up and Wolverine keeps shutting down. Dan Ketch is freed, and they kind of go their separate ways. Talia goes back with Johnny, which she's been sleeping with him constantly. Like in the last trade review, she's basically sleeping with him like every issue. We're not denying the fact that basically Johnny Blaze basically has to get with this beautiful woman. Yeah, she may have cat tattoos, but she's a very beautiful woman. Yep. Also, the whole thing about the CIA going to fire the other guy, which I thought was quite funny. Now, sadly put, when it comes to what happened after the storyline wrapped up, now Wolverine would manage to last for another 14 issues, and it's set to end with I think it just ended with issue 50. I think it did. Ghost Rider would not last much longer after this. This book managed to last for 4 more issues, but restarted as Ghost Rider Vengeance Forever. But this book, it's interesting for what it is. I did enjoy this one. Jeff Shaw is your artist for these issues. But that's most of what it is. I give this book a 9 out of 10. But it's interesting the fact that this is the whole Wolverine stuff. But I know about it because Ben Percy was not the first person who did this. It was Jason Aaron. It's like he probably thought this is a good idea, the whole Wolverine stuff. I'm like, reading this, by the way, in the flashback, Wolverine is wearing the costume I like, the John Byrne costume. And then, when it comes to present day stuff, he's wearing the ugly brown-yellow costume. I don't know why. But the last story they did for Wolverine was the Sabretooth War. But is that the very next story that comes out of this one? No. That's 2 stories after this one. Alright, next up we have is Batman the Code, a book I actually really enjoy reading. I told this to Bernie Wrightstein, who wrote this story. Yes, believe it or not, I have met Bernie Wrightstein. I told him I read this book and I enjoyed it. And he was quite surprised I liked this book. Yes. If you're curious of why he felt that way, why he felt that, what was the why he felt he was surprised, like, I like this book. My guess is because this is my personal theory. He probably didn't think the book was that good. That's my personal guess, anyways. What is Batman the Cult? It's written by Jim Starlin. Bernie Wrightson is the artwork here. It starts with Batman being captured by this brand new character who only exists in this miniseries, and then years later he pops up in Batman Eternal as a storyline leads into the guy out of the Midnight's book. Yeah. He's this priest who also bathes in blood. It's like Jim Starlin wrote this guy to be Batman's equivalent of Brother Blood. I like the story. That's one thing I love with this book is the story. Do I think the Blackfire is as boring as Baron Blood? No, I found him a lot more interesting than Baron Blood. I mean, I told people about this, about Baron Blood. Like, I love the guy's look. I love the story surrounding him. But he is so boring to read. By far, the most boringest character of Marv Wolfman's run. And thank God Joe would have killed this guy off when he did, because I was so happy to see that. So, Deacon Blackfire's followers are homeless people. So, at some point, Deacon Blackfire captured Batman, and he broke him mentally. I've also heard documentaries the first time that Batman's been broken. First of 2 times that happened back in the 80s, the other being the 10 Nights of the Beast. This series is only 4 issues. And there's Robin. Robin's this mini-series, but it's the 80s. So who is Robin at this point in time? It's 1988. You're probably thinking, is it Tim Drake in the mask? No. It's Jason Todd. Yeah. Jason Todd. But he didn't show up half of the story. So, see Batman nearly killing somebody sent by Deacon Blackfire. He breaks mental control. Also, homeless people are basically rampaging throughout the city to the point where the governor of the state where Gotham City is in is declaring martial law and declared the whole city be evacuated immediately. I'm like, all because you can't stop homeless people from rioting? That is so stupid. That's one part where I didn't really like very much. They call the military in to deal with a bunch of homeless people, and Batman, of course, is later Captain being a Blackfire, and then he tells his guys to take him to the bathing room and slit his throat. So he can bathe in his blood. And we actually see him bathing in blood by having 2 guys. This is another thing I didn't like about this book. I found this scene absolutely disgusting. Like, he has 2 guys hanging upside down, their throats slit, and him bathing in the blood to keep him young. I'm like, that is so gross, dude. Like, Baron Blood had a pool of blood that he bathed in. He didn't. It's the best way you get. Like I mentioned, he's basically like a low rent version of Baron Blood, but the thing is, Baron Blood was a Teen Titans villain. I like the stuff he did. I just didn't like when he talked. Like, I have nothing against Marvel, man. He writes all of his characters very fine, but the way he wrote Baron Blood, he is so boring. But Jim Starlin made Deacon Blackfire interesting. Yes, he did. What happened to Deacon Blackfire? Does Batman kill him for breaking him? No, his followers turn on him and they murder him because he's a false idol. My guess is that, this is my personal theory on the matter, that possibly Deacon Blackfire is partially based upon Jim Jones. those of you curious, like, who is Jim Jones? I've watched documentary related to this guy. So Jim Jones was the head of this religious cult that actually was based here in the U.S. and then was moved to South America, and also started a phrase where they drank the Kool-Aid and they turned. That phrase was started with him because his followers decided to commit mass suicide by drinking poison. Don't believe me? Watch documentaries surrounding the guy. Also, I've heard his followers call him Dad. Yes, seriously. They called him that. I don't know why, but that's what he did. And those of you curious, though, were his followers homeless people like Deacon Blackfire's was? Not that I've heard of anyways. I think we just know people who just got caught up in his nonsense. That's what I've heard anyways. Of course, Deacon Blackfire himself, like I mentioned, he was appeared a couple times after this story. He actually returned years later in Batman Eternal. And you're like, what? He showed up in the reboot New 52 continuity in Batman Eternal, a really good weekly series. Yes, it was a subplot that involved return that involved Spectre working with Batwing that laid the groundwork for the Gotham and Midnight series by, I think it was Ray Fox for the book. Of course, here's the thing I find interesting. Did you know Deacon Blackfire has actually appeared once at the comics? Once. You're thinking, where? Where did he appear? As a side story in Arkham Knight. What? He did? Yeah, he did. That was his only appearance. The story itself has been canon for years. As a matter of fact, New 52 kind of acknowledged this book as canon. It's kind of surprising, given the fact probably Jim Stone probably didn't maybe want it to be canon. But by the end of this, basically, Deacon Blackfire is taken down. His cult basically is never mentioned ever again in this series. Oddly enough, we don't have any callbacks to this particular story at all. But that's normally how these miniseries work. Batman usually has some callbacks, so usually follow-ups with an ongoing series. But this book in particular, no. No, there isn't. There's no follow-up to this book at all. When it gets Batman Eternal, my guess is the book came out, they must have liked the miniseries like I did. Like the two negatives I mentioned I didn't like was the martial law stuff and him literally bathing in blood, Deacon Blackfire. But at least Deacon Blackfire, I found him quite interesting for character. Kind of a shame, basically, that by the way, how he was brought back in Batman Eternal in the body of Maxie Zeus. Maxie Zeus, if you're not familiar with the guy, he is a villain who thinks he's the god of Olympus. He thinks he's basically Zeus of Olympus from Greek mythology. And when he popped Batman Animated Series, he thought Batman was Hades. Seriously. He thought he was Hades because he came up like from the ground. So it was like, oh, hello, Hades. And I'm like, you think he's Hades because he rode in the Batplane? Yes, seriously. That was an episode of Batman the Animated Series. Now, I can see why. You read this like, wait, they have a lot of Batman comics. Why didn't they have this one? It is too adult. Like, way too adult Batman the Animated Series. I think the reason I made the video game in Arkham Knight's side story because he made it in there because it's a video game. Yes, you're playing it, but they probably toned. If I can tell anyone was watching a walkthrough, they toned down Deacon Blackfire a lot. For one thing, he's not bathing in blood. He still acts the same way he does in the comic. It is quite surprising they basically brought this character in, but That's basically what they did with the character. Mm-hmm. Yep. But if you're a Batman fan, would I recommend checking this book out? Yes, definitely. Because this book is canon, and it's believe it or not, the only book for Batman that Jim Starlin wrote aside from the main Batman ongoing series. You're like, really? Yes, really. He just wrote the main Batman book for a very brief period of time, like for over a year, and then he did this book, and that was it. That's all he ever did, Batman. I initially heard he got fired from Batman, now like Death of Family, due to the fact the way he wrote Batman after Jason Todd died, where he just didn't care about grieving. And Denny O'Neil didn't like that very much, so he fired him from the book. Yeah. But for a close off here, when people think about Jim Starlin, the first thing people think of is Thanos, along with Gamora and Drax. People don't think it was Batman work. His Batman work is barely acknowledged. I mean, the only thing that may talk about is KG Beast, a character he created from DC, but his DC work is not as well known as his Marvel work. Bernie Wrightstein, well-respected artist, who one of his most noteworthy contributions to the industry was creating Swamp Thing and creating a lot of our books. After he passed away, DC did something really nice for him, released this Swamp Thing Winter Special, which I heard this from someone was with Jose Garcia Lopez, but I met the guy, that proceeds from that one shot went to his widow. Yep, I think it was like about 50% of the proceeds went to his widow. I'm like, that is nice of DC to do that. At least DC respects their older creators. Unlike Marvel, who didn't care pay Jim Starlin properly for Thanos, Gamora, and Drax. He said in the interview he got paid more for KG Beast than the other three characters he's more known for. And that's why I put it on one of my worst things in one of the year. I think it was like 2017. I think it was. I don't remember when the year was. Of like disrespecting Jim Starlin. Yeah. Never disrespect Jim Starlin. Never. I don't. I view his work. I love the guy's work. I don't think his Batman work is just, let's say, as good as his Marvel work per se. I do find it interesting per se. But when it comes to his Batman work, what do you usually think of Batman for him? Tonight's the Beast, Death in the Family, and this book. That's really it. That's literally all people think of when people think of Jim Starlin. Yep. But I'm going to end it here because it's getting kind of late. So please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and do not hit that dislike button. So I'll see you tomorrow for more anime, Super Sentai, and comic corners. I have like 3 left. Okay, this is tomorrow. Bye.